Hello there. Welcome to the Future Founders Fireside Chat podcast series, The Journey. This series features weekly discussions about virtual reality, emerging immersive technologies, and entrepreneurship from the 2018 Future Founders VR Fellowship, sponsored by the City of Seattle's Office of Economic Development and produced by 6R. The purpose of this podcast is to learn about the journey that it takes folks to enter the world of VR technologies and entrepreneurship. We hope to create an engaging conversation around emerging technologies in Seattle. This is episode 8, featuring Drew Stone, mixed reality mentor and team leader. Drew has been organizing the Eastside VR Meetup for over a year now, and takes great pride that new users of VR attend these meetups and of our inclusive and supportive community. Drew is presently assisting with a VR data visualization application for helping solve complex issues like climate change and looking to remain engaged in the XR sector as the field has much growth and potential for connecting and bringing people together. Interviewed by future founder VR fellow Eduardo Rojas at The Collective, Seattle. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hi, my name is Drew. I'm level 39. I am a generalist. I'm multi-class. I organize the Eastside Virtual Reality Meetup. I'm kind of addicted to VR, AR hackathons. And I love small, fast, collaborative teams, and I bake cookies.
Nice, great. I love the introduction. That was wonderful.
Thanks.
So you mentioned Eastside VR and little hackathons and all of these, quick events that really, get a push for making things fast. So could you tell me a little bit more about that, about AR and XR and VR in your community?
About the speed, things do move fast, but they also seem to move slow. It seems that market and general public adoption of VR and AR seems to be taking a long time, and that's exacerbated by the difficulty for funding to find their way into these spaces. I see that as a challenge because people, primarily investors or venture capitalists, are used to seeing a very simple equation. I give you $100, I wait 18 months, I collect $250 or $150 or whatever. Virtual reality at this wave of development is still so new. There's very few examples about how that trajectory happens. So investors become more squirrely about not wanting to give money, which is a terrible irony, which drives down the adoption of VR. It's like It's like a measure of faith, actually. You need to have faith that what you want to have happen and what you want to build in the world will happen. Of course, there's a risk. There's risks in every business venture, in every technology that ends up happening. So what I like to do is do my best work now, trying to bring everyone who I can involved in the conversation. And when I see... when I look at the surfaces of our community and the surfaces of the technology, if there's something that feels rough to me or a sharp edge, I bring my attention to it and see what that might be. And so some of the examples about where those conflicts arise are in equity and accessibility to VR. It's still kind of expensive to do VR. If you want to have a home unit, you could do the Oculus Go, which is, I think, the lowest priced VR unit possible. That is certainly standalone. You might be able to get away with having a even less expensive smartphone screen and put it in a Google Cardboard, but the experience is not as good. So even still, you're looking at over $200 just to experience VR. And that is an expense that is not available to everyone. So equity and access is an issue. accessibility is an issue. Right now, we do VR by strapping this thing to our face. We do augmented reality by putting something on our heads and then interacting with our hands or doing stuff like this with controllers. But not everyone works in the same way. Not everyone has strong enough neck muscles to hold an HMD, a head-mounted display, up on the front of their face for any extended period of time. Sometimes the controls or the controllers are built in an ergonomic way for what are just normal human hands, but not everyone has normal human hands. Some people have disabilities. Some people have physical limitations, like either like broken bones or anything that makes you not a part of the norm is, unfortunately, what VR is not being developed for right now. And so this is where I think that there's actually some good opportunity for augmented reality, that there is less reliance on complicated controller systems, a lot with hand motion tracking and like the HoloLens or Magic Leap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes to that saying that, like, if you build something for the average, no, it's going to fit nobody.
That's right, yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit more about your involvement in Eastside VR? You've definitely grown that a lot over the next few years. And how's that experience been connecting with and being the connector for a lot of people?
Oh, it scratches my itch on the inside. I love connecting people. The timeline is that I attended the 4th Seattle VR Hackathon in September of 2014, I think it was. I had never been to a virtual reality hackathon before, but I'd been to startup weekend events and done those types of things. So I was not unfamiliar with the model, but I really didn't know the space. And this was even still... No, it was 2016. It couldn't have been 4 years ago. It was only 2 years ago. Okay. But even still, it was still new. And I don't even think that I had experienced VR when I went to that hackathon. But I found a group with an idea that I was interested in, and I stepped up and helped project manage it. And we ended up winning the humanitarian aid and disaster relief category for a HoloLens project that's called Disastarchons. And it's for aid workers to come in after an emergency situation and be able to mark exactly here on the chair or exactly there on the table where there's damage that somebody else is going to need to address. And then this information ostensibly would be ported to Incident Command so they can make kind of like a triage situation about which housing units, which areas need the most work first. And there's a way to shorten the timeline for gathering that information. And from that, I was hooked. At the time, I lived in Bothell, and the closest VR meetup was the Eastside Virtual Reality Meetup in Bellevue. So I would show up there, and some of the people that I saw at the hackathon were also there, and so I got to continue and like build and maintain those friendships. And I just kept going back month after month, asking the founder, Kurt Kohler, how I can help. And that worked great. Actually, I really loved meeting new people. And then his co-organizer, Rags, was moving out of town, and he asked me to step up to do co-organizing. And that went really well. We collaborated really nicely. We got some cool stuff happening. But then Kirk was going to move on. He wanted to spend more time with his daughter, and he was also going to be moving to California, I think. So he offered the meetup to me, and I was really grateful that he trusted me, and I knew that I couldn't do it alone. So as soon as I knew that he was going to be stepping away, I started kind of like an independent or kind of like a search for who else I could get to help me build and run the Eastside Virtual Reality Meetup moving forward. And I interviewed a couple of people. I asked around, and there was somebody who I'd met who was working at the CoMotion Labs at the time, Carly Jean Kenow, working for Tossolini Productions. And she has such a great energy. She's a fantastic video producer and a musician and a singer. And she's into VR and volumetric video capture. And it was just like I didn't even know that there were check boxes that she was hitting. It was amazing. And so I invited her on. And I said, hey, would you please try it for 3 months and see if you like it and see if we work well together? And she has never looked back. And then I invited another person who also I knew from the hackathons and also from the Co-Motion Labs in the University District, was another Carly Wood. So I had Carly Jean and Carly Wood, and we were organizing the things, and it went really well. But Carly Wood had to step away to spend some time on different things in her life. And so I've reached out to another member of our community, somebody who just kept showing up to our meetups. He kept staying all the way to the end, helping us clean up. And I said, another Kirk. It's like we've got 2 Kirks and 2 Carlys that have been organizing this thing. It could be confusing, but I know how to keep them straight. And so he's been doing a good job of helping rally the people together, reaching out to other people, and also helping take a little bit of the load off for recording our sessions in 360. So there was so much going on. I was getting really frustrated with needing to record a video and greet the people and set up the thing and do that. And so by reaching out and getting the help of people who I trusted has been able to let Eastside VR Meetup grow. We've got over 1,000 members now, and I've been the main organizer for about 1.5 years at this point.
Great job. That sounds like it's going well.
Thank you. Actually, it's one of the things that Kirk started when he started it to raise your hand. Raise your hand if you work in VR. Raise your hand if you want to work in VR. Raise your hand if you're hiring for VR. And so the elements of our community are to explore and learn about new stuff, but also to be really clear that we want to spend our days doing this stuff. And we get people from Valve, and we get people from Oculus, and we get people from Altspace and Microsoft. They come by. Sometimes they're hiring, sometimes they're not. Sometimes there's small shops that are hiring, and we love to make those connections together. But I know that we are doing a successful meetup because every single month somebody shows up that has never tried VR. That makes me feel like I'm doing a good job in the community when I build an event or help to build an event that is not an insiders club. It's not exclusive. It's a free event. We offer it free of charge. We have a great venue sponsor, Apex Systems, that gives us this space in Lincoln Square. There's free parking. We've got a great room. And it warms me when I say, oh, hey, it's Drew. Nice to meet you. I haven't seen you here before. How did you hear about us? He said, well, somebody told me about it, or found it on the Meetup website, or I'm new to town. I say, have you tried VR? And he said, no, I'm interested. And that makes me feel like I am doing what I wanted to do with this community. And I hope to keep going with it.
Oh, that's amazing. I definitely look forward to going.
Oh, yeah, you should. We're doing one tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. We're going to be doing an introduction to Amazon Submarian, which is the Amazon VR platform. One of our regular attendees, Kirby Shabaga, has been using Sumerian for a while, and he told me that he wanted to give a presentation on how to do Amazon Sumerian, and I'm really excited about that. And we just had a VR hackathon a couple of months ago, and I've invited Jude Dye and Andrew McCormick to come present on their Lanterns experience, which they built for the HTC Vive. It's a really calm, quiet. It's immersive. It's the thing is that it's about just picking up a box, a lantern with a light inside of it, and you use your controller to paint an opacity on the outside, so like Sumi ink, with black Sumi ink, and you can paint on the sides, and you set it down into the water, and you're standing at the edge of a pond or something. It's almost completely dark everywhere else except for the lanterns, and the lanterns of all of the other people who have been writing to it are floating in there in front of you. So there's a chance that the poem or the caricature that I draw will be seen by somebody else that I may never even meet. Yeah. So I think that there's something really cool about that, and I'm looking forward for people to try it. Yeah,
I was able to try that demo out actually, and it had a very similar experience. Just felt so beautiful and very tasteful. Are there any other resources that you would recommend to starting for folks that are starting in VR?
VR resources. Where to start? It's almost like a little bit of a cop-out now to say to go to YouTube, but there's a lot of really good brief and intermediate and even super high-level tutorials on how to get into VR in multiple different platforms. So there's Unreal Engine, which is a popular one for making VR, and it's actually really accessible because it requires much less programming as an interface to put stuff together. It also has like a really particular type of look, which looks different than Unity development. And Unity is another game engine which lots of games have been built on. It's really popular for VR, but there's also Amazon Sumerian. There's other independent projects that are coming out, and people are building their own VR platforms, like at home in their garages and stuff. It may not be best to start with somebody's weekend project platform, but I would say consume VR. The reason why you know what words are is you practice with small words. You practice with small words, and you look at books before you know what they mean. So in the same type of way, practice VR, see what the code looks like even before you can understand it. Ask questions with other people, and then come to meetups. Some of the greatest resources are interpersonal resources that we have, particularly for our Northwest community in VR. The Seattle VR meetups, Eastside VR meetups. There's design reality events down in Portland, Oregon. There's other design and immersive hackathons like the architecture, engineering, and construction that Greg House puts on. There's lots of ways to get engaged. You just have to start, and it is frustrating when you know what you want to get and you're not able to get there. It's frustrating but inspiring. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi developed the concept of flow. Do you know this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the concept of flow happens when there's sufficient arousal and there's sufficient control, and when you get them both together with a challenge, that's when you get into a state of flow. But if you don't know what VR looks like or don't know what VR can do as far as different examples, you may not know how to go farther and do extra breadth. So I like to try like all different things. This is one of my favorite things to do at the Eastside VR meetup is we invite one special demo for people, something that's being worked on right now where it's maybe not even live on the internet or live on Steam. Occasionally that is the case that we get people who are farther along on their projects, and that's really wonderful to see too. But test and check. Try new VR all the time. Try VR on your phone using Google Cardboards. Try different platforms and headsets. I don't know if I favor one over the other, but there are different trade-offs. I will say that the most comfortable headset that I've tried is Oculus Go. I think that it fits my face really well. It's really light, and for the price point, it is, I think, the most accessible way to get into VR. And for someone that has access to Wi-Fi so that they can download content and has $220 and change for the 32 gigabyte version, I think it's a great entry into VR.
Definitely. Oh. So I'm really interested. It seems like you're super passionate about VR and just immersive technologies in general. And you did mention how you got to your first hackathon and you were hooked off the bat and you started to delve into that. But how did that go? What were you thinking you were going before you got introduced to VR, and then how did that change your trajectory?
At the time that I went to the hackathon, I was working at a startup that was going to be, they were also trying to create a user-generated content and content sharing platform. And I had already known, I had the sense that VR was going to be impactful and the potential that it has. So I started asking around when I was doing research about how to create a marketplace for user-generated content for VR. And I asked Ryan Boudinot. He's a local writer around here. I personally consider him kind of one of the Pacific Northwest's VR documentarians. So like he shows up at many of the events. He writes really well about some of these rough spots that I talked about earlier and how to think about them. And I asked him, hey man, what do people need when they need to make money or sell their VR? What does that look like? He said, well, the thing is, it's still too new yet. I don't know if it's out there, but you should go to the hackathon. And so I followed his recommendation and I went to the hackathon. But otherwise, I had no expectations.
Oh. What really convinced you that VR is your passion and that's where you find your flow in? Right? Was there a pivotal moment?
I don't know if there was like any real pivotal moment to it, but I've been really interested in consciousness and awareness for a very long time, and I've been considering what are the moving pieces and what are the building blocks to consciousness. What helps somebody to be more conscious or more aware, and when people are conscious and aware, what is it like to them? I think that virtual reality is one of the methods that might be best suited to capturing and sharing what those individual experiences are. And up until now, I don't know if there's been a platform that has been so immersive or a technology that makes that so translatable, between experience. So we could try the same VR experience and we'll have differing opinions on it. But at least we'll be able to talk about the things that we know make it different. But if I try VR experience and you haven't, or if you have never tried VR, it's very difficult for me to be able to relate what I have experienced to you. Just in the same way, when you have an enlightened moment or you have an inspiration that is very personal to you, I don't have a direct access to that. And so I see VR as a possible synaptic bridge for connecting people on consciousness and awareness.
Yeah, actually kind of reminds me of how people have mentioned that VR is an empathy, kind of similar to
Empathy
that.
generator?
Empathy generator.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? And is that similar to what you were mentioning?
I think that the term empathy generator is maybe a little bit too far. Mm-hmm. Using VR doesn't make empathy, but you can use VR to engender empathy and draw empathy from somebody and nurture it in them. But just putting on a headset doesn't make empathy happen. It is through the mindful development of the media. So by that I mean, let me take a step back. So photography. You got your color and your shape, your line, your balance, repetition of form, and how you frame the shot. A couple of other incidental things that go into photography. That's great. Those are the pieces that you need there. Okay, well, now let's do movies. Okay, well, it's all the same thing as photography, except for now you have like 30 frames a second going, and you've got music, and you've got tone and tension that you can bring into it. Okay, well, that's great. That's way more than just photography. Well, now it's photography that's film that you get to be really immersed in. And so it's no longer that you are watching what's happening on the screen. You are less of an observer. You are more a part of the experience. And so what that means for media development is still being discovered. This is fast. This is really new. This is like what's ended up happening. You can also do tremendous amounts of damage to people. One of the most impactful things that I think that I heard, maybe this is it. If there's a pivotal moment, I think that it's when I heard somebody say, when you are developing for VR, you are literally holding somebody's brain in your hands.
Wow.
And it's true,
Yeah.
because the headset comes on, it is wrapped around this, and it is my complete sensory experience. Visual, sound, haptics, the smell, I think, is going to be coming soon. I have some ideas about how to develop that. There's already some stuff that's being developed already. But the combination of those things bring a sense of presence and self, which is directly connected to empathy. So by checking off all these marks and having a way to describe and explore how this VR media is produced, we can guide people to ping and understand their own self-awareness, and there is where empathy is generated.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great.
Thanks.
It's extremely insightful. It's brain blast right now.
Oh, good. Well, we got it. We got it here. We got it there.
Sweet. So along this journey that you've come across, what have been some highlights?
Winning the prize for humanitarian aid and disaster relief for my very first augmented reality project was really cool. I had a really great team. I did not do a significant amount of programming, although I did open up Unity. It was a learning experience for me. I had not used Unity before. I generated some of the assets that we use over the short course of the weekend, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was following along the instructions of other people who were sitting next to me, and then when I produced the thing, I was like not even sure if that was right. And then I saw somebody put the asset in, and it showed up in our experience, and I said, I made that. And that was like, oh, shit. This is great. I really loved it.
Yeah.
That's maybe one of the times for me when I was stretching myself outside of my comfort zone, outside of what I knew that I could do, and I still was able to produce something that I was happy with. There was, it was not much, but it was enough to show me a win that got kind of like addictive, and now I wanted to win in more types of ways. I use this 360 camera. One of the other things that I do know how to do is I like to take photographs. I'm an artist. I've been an artist for my whole life, but I'm not. I don't consider myself like a hardcore programmer. So a friend of mine offered up this 360 camera, and I said, "Oh, well, there's an opportunity for me to engage with VR in immersive photography and immersive film in a way that I am more comfortable with." And it was still so very new, and so I ended up picking up this camera, and I carry it around with me, and I take pictures, and I've really enjoyed that. I was at a Halloween party this past weekend. And I am so comfortable and familiar with 360 cameras. With this particular 360 camera, I'm not a stranger to it. But so many people haven't even seen this stuff yet. And so it became like a novelty. I got pictures of people standing around in their costumes, and I ended up clipping it up on the wall and doing a time lapse of the party. And the file size was pretty big. But I ended up posting it onto the Facebook page for the event, and people have been appreciating that as well. So what happened for me, to bring it back around, is I found that there was something that I wanted to explore, and I was able to combine it with some strengths that I knew that I had, and it made it a little bit less scary for me.
Nice. Wow. And so I guess on the flip side, what hurdles did you come across, and how did you overcome them?
I didn't have a desktop computer. I had a laptop. I had a Mac laptop that was not suitable to run VR. So I needed to get my VR fix by going to meetups. It was a technological hurdle. When I was interested in VR, it was inaccessible to me. So that was a challenge for me. People would say, "Oh, hey, I'm offering up like a Steam code to try my game," and I would be like, "I like that post," and they're like, "Here's your Steam code," and I say, "I can't use it. I don't have the hardware." And so a friend of mine, Nima Zigami, he moved down to LA to work with Within, and he was getting rid of his computer, and so I bought his computer and his monitor from him. And then another friend of mine, Topher Welsh, he does the InDesign meetup at Adobe, and he's also one of the co-hosts of the Glitch podcast and the Glitch talk show, and he was getting rid of a Vive, and so I was able to, I had just started a new job too, so it was like, they didn't give them to me, but I had just earned up enough money to dump my money on this VR stuff, and it was less expensive for me to buy used and from friends, but it was still a significant expense. But that was one of the bigger hurdles, is having the gear to experience the stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. What are some useful lessons that you got from that experience?
Useful lessons. As much as possible, don't get discouraged. But it's okay to walk away from a project and come back later. I think that's an important thing, is that it may seem insurmountable, or it may seem like that it's completely obvious. Everything should work fine, but it's not working. Take a step back. Ask for help. It's actually great to be able to go to our community and meet with other people and say, hey, would you look at my code? Or when I run this program, I'm getting some glitches, or having friends of yours beta test stuff. That's one of the things that I really like. I've hung out at the CoMotion Labs, and there's been some really cool experiences developed there. And one of the things that also scratches my itch to be involved and collaborate is I love it when people ask me what they see, or if I would try on their experience. And I try to provide meaningful, constructive criticism and feedback, and what it would work for me, but also thinking about where I want VR to be and giving my feedback and responses to help support the future that I'm trying to create as suggestions to other people that are creating. So the more clear that I can be with the culture and norms and values that I think are important to VR, and I share them however possible, the more likely and the more satisfied I am going to be with the future of VR tomorrow or the next day.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Is there any kind of pathway that you would recommend for, for us fellows that are just starting off? Maybe some of us are straight out of high school. Is there any pathway that you suggest?
Well, connecting with community groups like 6R are great way to go. Showing up at the events and asking questions. Get messy is actually one of the things that I would do. Yeah, it's well, okay. So when we're born, we're infants and we have no faculties. We don't even have control over our senses. But soon we learn that we have this sensory inputs. Okay, I can touch things. I've got this mouth port. It tastes stuff. And so what kids do when they're learning in a new environment is they really pick it up, rub it into their hair, try it upside down, see it like this, put it in their mouth. Do that with VR. Taste it, take it all in. It's all use as much of your senses as you can to get a sense of what VR means to you. And if there's something that you find delightful about that, go ahead, continue and do that path. If there's something that you find that it doesn't fit you, make a note of it. You might want to come back to that later. That might be you or one of somebody who's new to VR finding that there's a rough edge in what their understanding is. And it is possible. It is extremely possible that rough edge that somebody found is significant. It's possible that rough edge is not even being addressed yet. So see something, say something, like accessibility or like demeanor with when people are in VR. It is a standard rule to not physically touch somebody who's in VR. When you are putting somebody into a VR demo, there's places that you can touch them that are less offensive, like on the shoulder or on the edge of the elbow. But you want to signal with your words that you're going to be touching somebody when you're trying to assist them with this experience. But it's not, when somebody is in a VR experience, that is their time to have that experience, and any interruption of that is not just a disservice to that individual or the experience. It can be extremely traumatic because you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's one of the things that I want to bring into the cultural understanding of VR, is that while VR is deep and immersive and fun, it is also a special and private thing for people, because they are letting some program control all of their senses. And when you come along and poke somebody in the ribs, that is unacceptable.
Definitely. So, thank you for sharing that. I have little experience with hackathons, although I keep on hearing more and more about them, and they seem to be the go-to place to really get some stuff done and get some experience. And so you've been going to hackathons, you've been creating minimal viable products on with time crunch. So that sounds very difficult for me to do. And so could you please talk me through how do you find the inspiration, set the direction, and then manage the team and develop it all within a span of 2 days or a weekend basically?
Man, that's a good question. It's well, in a sense, it's as simple as business development, right? When you are developing a business, or when you are developing a project or an idea or an artwork or anything, you should know what it is that you want to get at the end of it. So a photographer who is shooting a landscape knows that he or she wants to capture the landscape with the mountain on the left and these trees on the right. That is having a vision and making it a reality. The most difficult thing to do is successfully build a project on which there are multiple visions, because everyone is going to be working to fulfill a different vision. So the easiest way to do it is align the team, share snacks. It's always good to share snacks, but align the team on the vision of what it looks for. And sometimes you've heard mission, vision, values, and goals as things that you should be marking. But I'm not being hyperbolic when I say vision. When you describe a vision, when I describe a vision about a project, I want you to be able to actually see it in your head. I want to tell you what reality we're all going to see. That's when I share the vision. That's how I share the vision. And getting all of the team members to understand and agree and collaborate about what that vision is the first most important thing.
What are effective methods that you can use to share visions?
The favorite tool set that I have for collaborative teams is called the Core Protocols. And they were developed by Jim and Michelle McCarthy in the late 90s, I believe. They are a kind of wetware. So like software, you put it in your computer. Well, wetware is programs that we have inside of our mind that we access. And they are a protocol set for increasing productivity and creativity and driving towards action. So since they are my favorite tool set, I invite every person who I work with on a team to learn them and explore them, because I find that they're the best way for me to share what I am seeing and thinking and feeling about a project. And I invite other people to share in this streamlined type of fashion about how they want to engage, what they want to get out of it, and how to do it. And you can go to greatnessguild.org to have a collection of these protocols. And if you are interested in it, I love using them and I love talking about them and practicing them. Come back to me later on that one. And actually, I think that's something that Sixer might be interested in. But that moves away a lot of unnecessary filler that gets in the way of successful team problem solving. Because the first thing that happens is everyone agrees to be checked in to do a very short laundry list of not nonsensical, but no nonsense types of stuff, like don't do anything dumb on purpose, or always provide your best ideas, and always promote the best idea regardless of its source. Like if you have a better idea, offer it up. we're in this together to build something. And so the core protocols is one of my favorite systems to use to help people on teams share what they see, share what their values are, and share their best ideas for the project.
Oh, that's great, yeah. So sometimes when you start to get into it and you have sense of direction, this is how it's going to go. But then sometimes the project can lead you in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you stumble into answers, sorry. Maybe ask that another different question.
Sure.
Was it obvious when you stumble across an answer? You think you're going to go a different direction, but something might come up that all of a sudden you feel fits really well in the answer, as an answer.
Test and check.
Test and check.
Yeah. I mean, if I think that your scenario you're talking about is when a team has a vision and they're driving towards that vision, and then something out of left field comes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's for the team to decide if they want to adopt it and run with it or not, or in which ways. So it's a distributed process. I like to drive for consensus wherever possible.
Mm-hmm.
It is not always possible.
Yeah.
But as long as everyone shares a vision and the values for what they want to do and what they want to build, even if you suggest an idea that is not accepted by the rest of the group, if it's not supported by the rest of the group, you can save this idea for later. Or trust the team that they did not share your vision.
Mm-hmm.
Try it again.
Okay. So, what has been your favorite product so far, and why that you've created or been a part of?
Well, I really liked that HoloLens project for DisasterCon's project. That was a lot of fun, and actually, I'd never even used a HoloLens before that weekend either. That's probably been my favorite one because it was such a huge development from having no knowledge and having never even seen the hardware in real life before to testing it and then using it and then seeing it and then being invited to go do demos of the thing that we built last month at the Immerse conference, which was the VR conference in Bellevue, which was the next month that year, and we were invited to come do our demo. It was great.
Yeah,
so that's probably been one of my favorites, but I'm also working on a project right now with April Alderdice called Climate VR, and it is a data visualization manipulation tool in VR for solving complex problems and using a scientific method process to make observations, interpret the data, make a plan, and then track the progress. And I think that VR is particularly well suited to complex data sets or comparing different data types that don't look like they go together. VR has the capability to incorporate so many different types of sensory inputs that data can take lots of different representations and provide different meanings. But then again, this also is about how we intend to create it and what we're looking for when we create new media. And it should be done in a mindful way to think about what the experience is on its own. What is the experience when an individual interacts with it? What is the experience when the user walks away from it? What is left? What are they left with? All of these things are extremely important to think about, particularly because we want to build great things. We want to build impactful stuff. We want to help people see our vision.
Right. So I think this is an exciting question for myself since I'm just getting started in VR, and I feel like it's already, catching the first few waves, but I think it's going to go big. So there's been multiple waves of development, and VR and XR. Even the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive might, in the upcoming years, fade away with the Oculus Quest coming out and other systems. So, in terms of both hardware and content for these systems, what do you imagine VR and AR being in the next 5 to 10 years?
Man. Do you mean what does it look like from a retail setting, or what does it look like in the cultural consciousness?
I think I'm more interested in cultural consciousness. Will it be spread out? Will people, be a lot more integrated into that as in part of their daily lives? What type of content will it be focused on?
Yeah, okay. So I think that that's a tough question. I mean, it's pretty much anybody's guess. But it is possible that interest in this technology will dry up. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the technology that we're working on now and the technologies that are coming this week, next month, and next year are going to propel this immersive, augmented and virtual reality, mixed reality space. I think that it's going to be a little bit of a split. I think that there's going to be some flashy things that people rally big marketing money around, and those are what get big media sensations. But there's also going to be stuff that quietly creeps into the normal consumer space. And one example that I saw recently is Walmart has just integrated into their Walmart has an app, and you can use this app in a Walmart store to take a look at multiple different items from the tags that are on there and do extra data comparison on your phone. Be like comparing like this version of diapers versus that version of diapers versus that version of diapers. And you can snap the three things together and extra information will come up so you can compare prices and ingredients and all kinds of stuff like that. And it is through the ubiquity of what now are nearly ubiquitous, these cell phones, these little pocket computers that we carry around with us all the time. And so I think that that's probably where it's going to sneakily be developed into the future. But there's almost certainly going to be big projects that catch a lot of the market attention.
Oh. What excites you the most in the future?
Tomorrow. Whatever's happening tomorrow. It really is an exciting time. There's new stuff to read about and learn about the initiatives and ideas that people are putting together. I think that mental health is something that can be improved and influenced and supported through the mindful and careful development of VR and AR. That is, I think, one of the great impacts that I hope to see. And I am interested to continue to develop ideas and experiences and interactions that help people become more self-aware and more in tune with the actual meat space body that they have through the tool of VR.
Mm-hmm. That's actually one of the interests that I really have is like that mindfulness and consciousness. Just I feel like technology should always help you live a more valuable life, whatever you may define that as. But sometimes I feel like that it may be concerning that these systems are very immersive, can kind of take away from those experiences. So is that a concern that you share, or do you feel like we're heading in the right direction now, or not?
Oh, well, the technology is being developed across all all different sectors: the real estate, and health, and housing, and food, and civics. It's the scatter diagram about what's happening, and just as positive and meaningful as some of the well-intentioned developments, there are developments that are going to happen that are going to support things that are more beneficial to militaries. Or, VR can be used for education. It can also be used to disinform. While it can be used to help create a greater sense of self and a calmness, it can also be used to create anxiety and tension. It can be used to help people put pieces together in a particular type of way. It can also be used just as a fun, expressive medium. All of these things are being developed. I suggest that people take time and energy to talk about and try raising the conversations about what it is that they want to see developed, helping the world match their vision. Did that answer your question, by the way?
Yeah, I believe that did answer my question. Okay. I realize that it's a lot more complicated because there's a pull and there's a push everywhere. So thank you very much. I think that concludes it with just one more last question.
Sure, go ahead.
And this one always catches people. If you could send a message to your 18-year-old self, what would it be?
What were those Powerball numbers again? No.
That's a good one.
Let's see. A message to my 18-year-old self. All right. Oh, hi, Drew. How you doing there? Jeez. I don't know. I kind of like the way that I have handled the days and weeks and months of year of my life. Maybe it would be to encourage myself to ask hard questions and just show up. I think that's some of my greatest successes have come from asking hard questions and showing up no matter what.
Thank you. I'll definitely take that advice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, Woody?
Did you guys talk about how to contact Eastside VR?
Oh, yes, please. Could you... If anybody wanted to contact you or get involved with Eastside VR, do you have any information?
So Eastside VR is a meetup group. You can find us on meetup.com. Do a search for Eastside as one word and VR. You can also find us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is ESIDEVR, and you can find me on Twitter at StoneDrew.
Nice.
And we do our Eastside VR meetups every second Thursday. We're actually going to have to figure something out about this coming February because the second Thursday is Valentine's Day. And so actually, I think that I want to still do it because people that love spending time with their computers might want to spend time with other people that like spending time with their computers. Hey, and thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to Eduardo and Booty of 6R. Thanks for watching again. See you later.
Well.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe and give us a rating or comment if you enjoyed this content. This episode was brought to you by the City of Seattle's Office of Economic Development and 6R. Mixed and mastered by Joshua Duchesne. Please check the show notes for more information. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, we hope we've inspired you to keep exploring your own journey.